Hello, good afternoon. I am Emily Cameron. I am the Public Affairs and Communications Director for the Downtown Sacramento Partnership. And welcome to the first of the Downtown Impact webinar series. We're excited to launch the 6-week series with helpful topics, tips to get you and your business through what has been an incredibly unprecedented time with the COVID-19 crisis. So we couldn't begin with a better topic than what we have planned for you today, setting the foundation for your small business. Here to provide you with strategies and tips to develop new ways to save, sell, and succeed. We have Keith Walter with Sacramento chapter of SCORE. In case you aren't familiar with SCORE, it's an incredible organization, the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and resource partner to the U.S. Small Business Administration, but more importantly, a dedicated group helping small businesses get off the ground, grow, and achieve their goals, and most importantly, often at no cost. So before we kick it over to Keith, I did want to give you a little bit of background of our speaker today. Keith comes with degrees in both math and computer science. He's managed products and projects for international companies and is a serial entrepreneur and current small business owner, so definitely very familiar with some of the topics we'll discuss today. Keith understands the unique perspective and challenges that many of you are facing, and we're excited to have him here to talk about the creative ways that we can support your business. I do want to give you some quick housekeeping. Remember that you have a Q&A option at the bottom of your tab. Please use that to ask questions. We will answer them as we go and accumulate any that are maybe parking lot topics or additional questions to answer at the end. So ask away, don't be shy, but remember to use that Q&A option instead of the chat feature. Lastly, don't forget that this is a recorded webinar, and at the end of this session, I will let you know where we will be posting it, as well as information about the additional 5 weeks of small business tips and webinars. So with that, Keith, we'll let you get started on what everyone is here today to learn.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. I have to admit that although I've done a few of these, doing virtual presentations is never as easy as doing this in person, primarily because I have no idea what all of you are interested in, what your background is, what it is you're looking for. And so in addition to the instructions you've already been given, down at the bottom of your screen, there should also be a chat button. And if you would be kind enough to just use that to let me know if you are currently in business, whether you're looking to start a business, and if you've got any specific questions you want to make sure I cover during this presentation, that would be really valuable. And so the other thing that would be valuable is I'm never sure what you're seeing, so I'm going to, in theory, share my screen, and then hopefully you'll start seeing slides. So if someone can tell me if you're now seeing something that says managing uncertainty, that would be really valuable. And I'm not seeing a lot of chat activity, so hopefully that means you're out there and you can see this. All right, so yes, excellent. I got some feedback. So you've already heard a little bit about me. Let me talk to you about the rest of the agenda. I'm going to talk about what it means to be managing a business this year. Obviously, all of you who are in business know it's unique. And so we're going to start with a little bit of a reality check. I want to talk about what I think of as the foundation. It's customers, it's products and services, and it's your operations. And I'll do that primarily from the basis of examples or questions. And then once we've gone through that in relatively short order, I'll give you some specific examples of customers, clients that I've been working with over the last few months to maybe spark some additional questions or give you some insights to what others are doing. Then I want to talk to you about what I recommend as specific actions that each of you should take away from today. And hopefully I'll leave most of the time for us to deal with any questions you have, because my guess is you're a diverse audience and that generalities only go so far. And so we'll need to get into the specifics of your situation to really help you out. So again, I'm talking into a blank screen. I hope that's helpful, but we'll jump in and see where we go. This is the last slide that you're going to see about me. It's really here only because at the end, you should all get a copy of these slides. And if you want to learn more, there's a link you can find out about me. And there's also some reference links at the end of this presentation that can give you more information about the topics I've covered today. Now let's jump into 2020 as a year. So I'm going to start with the obvious, and that is, unless you were clairvoyant, your assumptions about what you were going to be doing this year, what was going to be happening in your business, what your priorities were probably wrong. I don't think any of us foresaw that, the pandemic would take over the United States. I don't think any of us foresaw that we'd be seeing the shutdowns that we've been seeing. We'd be seeing the supply chain issues, or the randomness of kind of when the shutdowns occur and how they're announced or how they're enforced. And let's be frank, the future is certainly not certain. That we're in a situation where some of you may be doing exceptionally well. The majority of you are probably having a hard time getting through this. And so given that that's the reality, my view is that there's never been a better time for you to take this time to step back and do the things that we normally don't have time to do when we're in business for ourselves. And that is to assess honestly where you are today, what your cash flow is or what your cash position is, how you need to adjust your goals to deal with the new reality, what your customers think of you today now that they've been dealing with this for a little while. Revisit your products and services. And we'll talk about all of these in more detail. And finally, for many of you, it's a time to look at how do you save money. Because until we can get back to something approximating a new normal, you're probably not going to have the cash flow that you need. And so you need to conserve cash and hang on, is what I've heard from most of the clients that I've been working with. So from a reality check perspective, it's a very uneven playing field. If you are in the travel industry, as I am, if you own a bar, if you are in a gym, a nail salon, this is a really, really tough time because the disease makes it virtually impossible for people to avail themselves of any of your products or services. On the other hand, if you're Amazon or if you're UPS, or if you're Zoom, as we're using today, this has been an absolute boom for them. Their business is through the roof. So, we'll start off with, you need to ask yourself, has this been good or bad for your business and why? And the why is really important because in working with lots of small businesses, something that's fairly common is we're so busy with the day-to-day operations that we don't necessarily have the metrics, the tools in place in order to honestly know where we stand. I can't tell you how many interviews I've seen or done where I say, well, what's happened? How much business have you lost? Or how many months can you survive? Or what do you need in order to survive? And the answers are not at all clear. And that's usually because they've never had the time to really lay out their cash flow or to do the level of tracking that would allow them to quickly and easily answer that question. So the takeaway from this is we're going to come back and revisit. What do you need to have in place in order to be able to answer those questions? Because as this drags on, or even if it starts to turn around, answers to those questions are going to be critical in terms of where you look for help and how you adjust. Customers. Any of you who are currently in business know that customers are the lifeblood. Without them, we have no business. We have no cash flow. And so my question to you is, how well do you really know your customers? Have they called you and asked how you're doing? Have they gone away in droves and you've not heard from them? Do you have a sense of how loyal they are to your business? Will they be back when you open your doors if you currently have them closed? And probably the most important question I'm going to ask you is, do you understand what your customers need from you right now in order to continue to be steady, loyal customers to your business? Are they worried about safety? Are they worried about, your products and services contributing to their potential illness? Are they worried about your employees, if you have employees? And are you staying in touch with them? Because at some point, this will end and we will return to something more normal. And the, the employee, the vendors, the customers, the people who stay in touch, they're the ones who are going to come back the fastest. You're going to have the most success if they feel like you care about them, you remember them, and you've stayed connected with them in some way that makes them sticky, so makes them want to partake of your products and services as opposed to anyone else's, or to search for other options. Products and services. So I'm going to use this slide to offer up what might be a difficult position for some of you. In business, most of us who enter business and stay in business are self-starters. We overcome obstacles. We find ways to get things done. But the success of any business is a function of those things that you can control, as well as those things that you can't control. And never has there been a more obvious time of things that are out of our control. None of us have any real control over the pandemic. None of us have any real control over what the government chooses to do in terms of shutdowns or restrictions or changes to our operating environment. And staying clear on where we really stand today, what we can control, and being aware of the factors that influence us that we can't control is absolutely essential as you revisit your set of products, your products and your services. You may now have products or services that are simply irrelevant. A simple example for me is I own a travel agency. The only service that has been relevant for the last several months is cancellations. I've gotten really good at helping my customers get their money back or future credits. But in terms of booking future travel, with the uncertainty of dates, it's almost impossible. And so it's an example of an industry where you have to recognize that now is not the time to be trying to grow. It's a time to be trying to save money. It's a time to be looking for other products or services that I can offer in order to keep them loyal, to be able to keep them interested. Which brings me to the second point here, which is repurposing products or services. I was reminded of how creative some of you can be when I was driving home and I saw that a stand that normally sells sports memorabilia was now selling sports memorabilia in the form of masks with various organizations' logos on the masks. So it's a way to take advantage of the opportunity that presents itself today and still stay sticky to the core business that you're doing. I have another client who is in the medical industry, and he had to find a product like Zoom, which was recognized as having the confidentiality requirements in order to be able to do online business. And it's interesting how it has actually expanded his business because it's increased the geography in which he can work in. Certainly not something that he was thinking about 3 months ago, but it's the necessity of the times. For some of you, it might be a time to expand. If you happen to be in the cleaning business right now, cleaning is thriving because everyone is looking for how they can build confidence that their business, their location is safe to re-enter. If you're in a business where you realistically can't sell and can't evolve your products, maybe it's time to look at a merger, or worst case, liquidation so that you don't end up carrying costs that you'll never be able to recapture. And finally, supply chains have been disrupted, and that has implications to your customer service. The last thing in the world you want to do is end up being providing poor service during a time like this. And if your upstream suppliers are unable to fulfill your product or service needs, you need to be honest with your clients about that. You need to understand it first and be able to talk about what that means for your customers. I'm starting to see a few questions come in. I'm going to get to them here very quickly. I've just got a couple more slides, so bear with me and I'll try and address all the questions that are coming in. Really, the last of kind of this set of slides is just to talk about operations. And hopefully by now, many of these will be obvious to you. So if you are a large employer, if you're a school, if you're in a position where this is remotely possible, I'm sure you've already looked at remote work options. As I explained with my friend, the doctor, he didn't think of that as an option, but upon further exploration, it turned out to not only be an option, but a growth opportunity for him. Do you need to make physical changes? Do you need to put up barriers? Do you need to do training? Do you need to install cleaning, hand washing stations? All of those things are going to be essential to making your customers feel safe. And if you have employees, making them feel safe and ready to come back. Nothing, we've certainly heard the stories of restaurants or businesses that have had to close when one of their employees has become infected. And there's never been a more important time for us to really stay on top of training and sort of close to the people who are working with us, because in many times they are the face of our business. One of the things that you may or may not have thought about is that some of what you are doing now will be temporary. Some of what you are doing now may become a permanent part of your future operation. Depending on which you think it is, will influence how much you want to spend on it, whether you do it in-house or whether you outsource it. And it's just kind of one of those many things that you should be considering as you go through the process of evaluating how do you take cost out, how do you make customers feel safe, how do you become relevant in this time. Excuse me, but talking incessantly drives me out. If your sales are down, or if you're unable to sell at all right now, have you taken a hard look at how do you cut whatever we might think of as fat in the business and not bone, so that when you're able to reopen, you're in a position to come back as strong as possible? Some examples of that are many landlords understand the dilemma that small businesses are going through and are willing to defer payments. Many banks, through either the government programs or the self-interest, are willing to forego loan payments for a period of time. Some suppliers are in exactly the same predicament that you are, and if you stop paying them, they will probably stop supplying you. And so you need to evaluate on a case-by-case basis, where can you delay payments or defer payments or eliminate payments in order to conserve cash. And in a similar vein, it's now a great time to be relooking at, are there things that you're doing today that maybe you could outsource, or maybe you could become the outsourcer for another company. I've been doing a building remodel, and I've found that with some of my partners, we've bartered services because it's a more cost-effective solution right now and helps keep everyone busy during this period of time. The number of options for how you can save money, how you can innovate, how you can work with your vendors, your partners, your customers is almost only limited by your creativity. And I've discovered that many of them during this period want to work with small business owners, want to find solutions. You only have to ask. So at this point, let me just see if I can find my chat option here. Anything that you want me to go back and clarify on the previous slides before I jump into these examples? Okay. So I'm going to give you some examples to hopefully spark a few more questions. I work with a local copy shop, and in the past, the copy shop has worked very extensively with nonprofits. They do a great job with programs, fundraisers, that sort of thing. With the pandemic, that business has all but dried up. So they took the time to think about how do they fill in the gap? How do they stay in business until we return to those more normal times? And they recognized that this was a year where high school and college seniors were not having a chance to get recognized through normal graduation. And so reaching out through the schools and through various other school-oriented groups, they made themselves the premier source for doing graduation posters, graduation signs, graduation cards, graduation letters. And while it certainly hasn't fully filled in the gap, it's given them a lifeline. And I met with them today, and they actually have picked up quite a large number of new customers that they expect will be long-term customers as their business continues to evolve. I spoke to you about my travel business. It's just not practical right now to expect my customers to be booking cruises, to be booking trips, because they don't know if the properties that they would be using will be open. They don't know if the airlines are safe. They don't know if the destinations that they want to visit would be welcoming. And so my focus here is in twofold. One is I have eliminated all unnecessary spending, primarily in terms of day-to-day operations and staff. And I focused on building my email list, doing surveys, doing promotions that are not travel related in order to be in my best position for when travel once again becomes possible. A painter. Again, this relates to some of the remodeling projects that I've done during this period of time. I was looking, my situation was that when I began my remodel activity, it was almost impossible to find subcontractors. We were in the midst of a boom, and everyone was booked out for weeks in advance. When the pandemic and the shutdown occurred, all of that business dried up very, very quickly. When I went to look again for someone to help with painting, suddenly the options were much, much larger. And the company that I ended up using turns out to be one out of the Bay Area who has gone to online and to some of the broker sites in order to expand their territory and keep their staff busy, and also to potentially look at future expansion into this area when the business returns to normal. Many of you, hopefully all of you, have heard of the government programs that have been enacted. I work with an electrician who took advantage of the payroll protection plan in order to keep all of his staff on staff, because in that particular field, employee loyalty, employee skills are absolutely essential to growth. During this period, he hasn't necessarily had the paying business to keep all of them busy, but he has, through bartering activities, through some backlog activities that he had, and through some outreach into the community, through some organizations that he belongs to, managed to keep his staff busy so that their skills have also stayed sharp. most of you have probably experienced what the larger retail chains have been doing at least since the March timeframe, creating special windows for seniors, using opportunities like car hop services, where you order online and someone runs the merchandise out to your car for pickup option. I'm seeing this even in the smaller businesses in my local village, where people have focused on breakfast handouts, or going so far uh, as I mentioned in restaurants, they've packaged meals. They have added, if they have their liquor licenses, mixing drinks to go with their takeout, creating interesting new options for people to be able to take on the go and break up the monotony of their lives. We've talked a little bit about lease deferrals and reductions in some cases, depending on what's happening in other landlord properties. Hopefully, if you haven't done this already, you've looked at how to move some of your sales or services online. Something you may not have considered is gift cards. Gift cards have been a mainstay of large organizations. Think Starbucks, think Amazon, think Apple for years. But they're now accessible to almost any small business. There are a number of providers who will do everything from the printing or create virtual gift card programs for you. These give you cash flow immediately and also increase customer loyalty in terms of bringing customers back to you. And last on this list is the idea of creating subscriptions, creating newsletters, adding a donation capability or an online tip jar. As I said, many clients want to help small business. They understand this is a difficult time. And so if you're not making it easy for them to help you, then you're missing an opportunity. So I'm going to take a break, give you just a moment to think about what specific questions do you want to have me talk more about as we jump into this next section. And then we will get into actions I suggest for you. Okay, I have a question. In addition to putting more emphasis on selling online, what else can Main Street businesses do to navigate all the changes? We are open now, but may need to shut down again. We made it through the first closure, not sure we can survive the next round. It feels like mom and pop shops may be doomed. So it's I think the question on many of our minds. And as I said earlier, there are things which are within our control. There are things which are not within our control. What can you do besides moving business online? You can ask your customers, ask your neighbors, what unmet needs do they have? If you subscribe to Facebook, if you subscribe to Nextdoor, the number of people who are looking for face masks still. For a period of time, the people who are looking for toilet paper. Obviously, those are the easy, well-known examples, but there are other examples. People all across our community are struggling from everything from boredom to loneliness to being afraid to go out and shopping. And so if you can offer them home delivery, or if you can offer them a service to do minor repairs, again, this becomes difficult talking to a general audience, because each of your business's core value is going to be a little bit different. And so I would be happy to talk with you one-on-one to brainstorm where you might look for innovation, look for other supply options, look at how you might be able to expand your territory. But again, depending on what your specific business is, um, a beauty parlor, pretty limited in terms of the options beyond moving towards product sales, or maybe doing, videos to teach people how to cut their own hair or dye their own hair, and selling them the supplies and products. If you're in a do-it-yourself business, it's a boom time, and your problem is probably finding staff in order to meet the growing demand. And so each situation is a little bit unique, and that's why it's hard to give a general answer to what else to do beyond the examples that I've already given you. So let me give you some suggestions for how, if you don't want to reach out and talk about it, you might answer that question for yourself. Hopefully most of you are aware of what SWOT is: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The simplest way to do this is you take one sheet of paper, you draw 4 quadrants, and you put your, bulletize it. Probably no more than 3 bullets in each one. What are your core strengths? What are your core weaknesses? In this current environment, what opportunities present themselves? What threats to your business, such as another shutdown, are you looking at? Once you've identified those items, I would ask that you take another, really 3 sheets of paper, and on each one, identify the 3 things that you need to change in order to survive this pandemic. And I would encourage you, and I'm not suggesting that your 3 topics be cash flow, time management, and customer retention. I'm suggesting that for your unique business, you have, what are the 3 things that you want to try over the next 90 days? And this is a great time for you to keep those papers on your desk, and every time that you come up with an idea, add it to the list and think of it as a punch list. Try to make progress on each one every day, and if you get stuck, move to the next one. And if you get stuck on all 3, reach out to a mentor, reach out to a friend, reach out to another business owner, and use this opportunity to grow your network. Use this opportunity to learn new skills. Use this opportunity to find new suppliers who are offering products or services that you can implement in your business structure today or in the very near future. I had an observation come in, which I think is a valuable one that I'll share with you. And that is, some of you may be feeling almost hopeless in the situation that we're in. And that can become a really dangerous rabbit hole that's awfully easy to go down, which is part of the reason that SCORE and organizations like SCORE exists. There's only so much that I can do in a video conference. There's only so much that we can do in any kind of a group presentation. But in a one-on-one mentoring session, or just a one-on-one conversation with a good friend, often you can identify opportunities, options that may not be available if you just, think of it on your own. It's awfully easy to stare at a blank piece of paper and for the world to just seem hopeless. And just know that there's a large pool of people, resources that are available in this community in order to help you through this. And again, I thank the Sacramento Downtown Partnership for hosting this today. And I hope, if you weren't aware of SCORE or the SBDC or the Women's Business Center or any of the other organizations in this community who try and provide these support services, that you'll avail yourselves of that if you are feeling hopeless. I always believe it's easier to start with something that someone else has done rather than starting with a clean sheet of paper. So I just grabbed an example off the internet, and this happens to be one for a very large organization. And the reason I grabbed it was twofold. One is um, this is a huge organization and it's dealing with a huge topic, but it's all on one sheet of paper. And I can't overemphasize the value of keeping something on one sheet of paper. Many of you have probably been involved in writing business plans. They can become very beautiful, 30, 40, 50 page documents, but they tend to sit on shelves and not get used. If you can put something on your refrigerator, put something on your desk that you refer to and helps keep you on track, particularly in times like this, it's an incredibly powerful motivator to keep you moving forward. And this is an example of where Nike said, okay, we've got a virus. We need a playbook for how we're going to deal with that in China. They broke it into phases. They ended up with anywhere from a couple to a half a dozen bullets in each phase. And they were very specific in what they were asking their staff, their team to do in order to survive this. This is the kind of thing that I'm suggesting for the 3 pages we talked about earlier. Try and be succinct, try and be specific, try and make it actionable, because those are the key to moving you forward during this period. As I said earlier, lots of resources in the community. I could have made this list probably 100 items long, but you all know how to search online these days. I've picked 4 that I think are particularly good. The first one is admittedly self-serving because I'm representing SCORE, but they've done a whole series of articles on what they refer to as business resilience training. How do you survive? How do you make yourself stronger? There's some checklists, there's some good research, there's some good articles in there. The Shop Safe, Shop Local is one that I just discovered this week. It's been published by the state of California, and it's an attempt to help all of us. It's an attempt to try and remind our customer base how critical it is to support local business. It gathers together in one place resources that are available from the state of California, as well as resources from a number of large suppliers who are looking to help us get through this. And so it's a wealth of information that I would encourage all of you to visit. The other 2 are also equally good. The thing I would advise against is we live in a time where it's not that there's too little information, there's too little time. That for almost any topic we've talked about today, you can now on your phone Google it and probably get 100 million responses. The problem is that you don't have time to go through 100 million responses. And you'll see a lot of repetition, a lot of duplication, or if you look broadly enough, you'll start to see conflicting information that you'll then have to try and resolve. So my advice to you is pick one of these resources. The style, the appearance that they present is a little bit different. Some will be more attractive to you than others, and stick with it. Use it as your source and use it as your way to kind of stay on track along with your single sheet of paper. And I've done this about a half an hour. I'm a little bit over. So I'm going to try and stop the screen sharing, if I can get that to work. Or maybe I can get some help from my friend, since there it is. There, we're back. So now I can actually see some of this chat. So Leonard has pointed out that home care is thriving. Leonard is a fellow mentor at SCORE and happens to have a vast experience in the home care industry. And the point I think that he's making is hard to underestimate. We live in a time where the elderly are at much greater risk of uh, death or serious injury from this pandemic than everyone else. And so they're particularly vulnerable, they're particularly careful, and they're looking for additional services and capabilities. Many of them are scared away from the traditional healthcare solutions that are available to them. And so depending on your skill set and your willingness to be flexible, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in that space that might be a carry forward for some of you, a lifeline to help you get through this if your traditional business is not available. So Harper, who is another fellow SCORE mentor, highlighted that in this day and age, we could rebrand SWAT to recognize that T could stand for traffic, as in this pandemic has been quite the stop sign for many of us in our businesses in terms of bringing customers. And so I think the point he's trying to make is, as you go through your analysis, answering the question of what is stopping your customers from doing business with you today is a key question for you to answer. And if you can find a workaround, if you can find an alternative way for them to reach you, to do business with you, to help support you during this period of time, you're likely to find that many of them are more than willing to meet you halfway. I got a message that the link that I sent on SCORE resilience training doesn't seem to be working. So thank you for submitting that. I will check the link after I'm done and update it in the slides so that hopefully when you get them, you get a working link. If all else fails, I'm going to share with you a little bit about SCORE. SCORE is a national organization. The URL, the way you access it on the web, is really easy. It's just score.org, SCORE.org. And the main site has 3 sections. And one of them is for reference material. And so if you select the reference material from the SCORE site and you say, COVID, or say resilience, or say training, it will allow you, much like any Google search, to filter and find exactly what you're looking for in a very nicely curated library. So if you ever get a broken link, discovering it on your own is a relatively easy process, and learning how to use those search tools to find exactly what's appropriate to your business is probably a valuable exercise. And I, at this point, do not see any other questions. So I will turn it back to our lovely host.
Thank you, Keith. That was incredibly informational. And I think, as all of our businesses are looking at how they retool and adapt to today's environment, important tips. I will echo a lot of what we have been working on helping our businesses understand here in downtown is helping the customers to find them. So in addition to establishing your online or digital presence, I encourage you, if you haven't already, to make sure that you have social media profiles. We're finding more and more that customers are finding their services from home, and in particular on social media, so whether that be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And both Facebook and Instagram have set up some great resources for business pages. So encourage you to look into those resources. You can also find links on our website, downtownsac.org/COVID-19. So I actually want to Also encourage you to go to that website to find links to things like grant programs. If you're in the restaurant industry, in a Central City restaurant, for example, we have some grants for restocking support and other things to help offset some of the costs that we know you are all bearing today, and to help establish you in a little bit of a seed moving forward as we prepare for reopening. I also want to put on your radar next week, our webinar topic is purchasing insurance. So over the last several months, you know, who knew that with a pandemic that many insurance companies viewed it in a very specific manner. So we want to talk about determining if you have the right coverage and how to purchase the appropriate coverage at the best possible price. So we will have John Bolche with LP Insurance. Same time next week, I encourage you to go to our website, downtownsac.org/COVID-19, where you can sign up for that webinar. And again, where you'll find all the resources. So with that, we want to say thank you for your time. This webinar was recorded. It will be emailed to everyone on this webinar, as well as posted to our website later today. And we hope to see you next week and continue to support you as you are reopening. Please make sure that you are visiting the county website for instructions regarding protocols. That's saccounty.net/COVID-19. There are some specific guidance and health and safety measures to help you ensure that you're protecting your employees and customers and getting us all back to work as quickly as possible. So with that, thank you, and everyone have a great Thursday. Stay cool this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.